We want to show people why this is such a complicated case for the jury, and either you're going to understand it at the end or you're going to have a lot of sympathy for the jurors here. Okay, first of all, this crime that is charged, 34 counts of falsifying business records, normally that is a misdemeanor.
Normally a misdemeanor. Only reason it's bumped up to a felony in this case, because prosecutors say it was in furtherance of another crime. It was trying to conceal that other crime.
And that raises the question, what is the second crime alleged here?
So in this case, the prosecutors have pointed to President Trump, Michael Cohen, and David Pecker, who you just heard, conspiring to try to influence voters in a way that they say broke New York state law. So they point to this New York state law that says it is a crime to try to promote an election by unlawful means. Unlawful means, guys, this is the key phrase.
So this is step one. This is step two. There is a third step. What are those unlawful means? And this is where it gets very confusing.
It's almost like a nesting doll. If you get to that step, then you can get here. But if you don't think that he's falsified anything, you don't even get to the conspiracy in here, by the way. So if you get to the falsification, you get to the unlawful means, prosecutors have offered a variety of different avenues that the jury could choose from, potentially a violation of election law. And on that front, remember, this is all about the payment to Stormy Daniels ahead of the election. And prosecutors say when Michael Cohen made that payment, it actually violated federal law. You didn't hear a lot of testimony about that, but they say it violated the federal contribution limits. And so that could be one of the crimes. Possibly other false.
The walls are closing in, and this time it's not speculation. It's not conjecture. It's witness testimony. Under oath in courtrooms. From people who were there. People who know exactly what Donald Trump did, and what they're saying is devastating. We're talking about explosive witness testimony in multiple legal proceedings that paints a crystal clear picture of unlawful conduct by the former, and now current president. These aren't anonymous sources. These aren't leaked documents. These are witnesses, including former close allies and insiders, testifying under penalty of perjury about directives and actions by Trump that violated laws. From obstruction of justice to financial fraud to election interference, the testimony is piling up, and it's damning. Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer and fixer, testified about coordinated efforts to falsify business records and circumvent campaign finance laws. And he didn't mince words. He said Trump gave the orders, not suggested, not implied. Gave the orders, direct involvement. Cohen described a system where Trump directed illegal payments, orchestrated cover-ups, and then falsified business records to hide it all. This is the guy who handled Trump's dirty work for years, and now he's laying it all out in court. Then there's Robert Costello, a defense witness with close ties to Trump. In October 2025, Costello was actually reprimanded by the judge for contemptuous behavior during testimony about hush money payments. Think about that. A witness called by Trump's own defense team behaved so badly in court, rolling his eyes, sighing audibly, acting hostile, that the judge had to intervene. Why? Because the testimony was highlighting pressure to shield Trump from wrongdoing, and it wasn't going well for the defense. And it's not just these two. Multiple courts have ruled against Trump's attempts to dismiss fraud penalties, affirming that the evidence supports findings of ongoing and repeated fraud by Trump and his organization. We're talking about court rulings. Judges looking at the evidence, hearing the testimony, and saying, yes, the fraud happened. Yes, it was systematic. Yes, Trump was involved. Special counsel reports and grand jury testimonies have documented Trump's attempts to obstruct official investigations. Orders to withhold documents. Pressure on executive officials not to cooperate with Congress. Efforts to hide evidence, intimidate witnesses, and derail legal proceedings. This isn't alleged behavior. This is documented behavior, corroborated by witness testimony from people who were in the room when these decisions were made. What we're seeing is a pattern of criminal conduct spanning years, involving multiple schemes, and now being exposed by the very people Trump trusted to carry out his orders or keep his secrets. These witnesses are former allies, former employees, former lawyers, people who had everything to lose by testifying and everything to gain by staying quiet. But they're talking anyway, and what they're saying makes it increasingly unlikely that Trump escapes legal accountability. The testimony is clear. The evidence is mounting. And the picture that's emerging is of a man who believed he was above the law, who directed others to break the law on his behalf, and who is now facing the consequences of those choices. Let's break down the specific testimony and what it reveals about Trump's conduct. Starting with Michael Cohen, probably the most significant witness in the hush money case. Cohen was Trump's personal attorney and fixer for over a decade. He knows where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively, and his testimony has been absolutely devastating. Cohen testified that Trump directed him to make illegal hush money payments to Stormy Daniels during the 2016 campaign to keep her quiet about an alleged affair. That's a campaign finance violation right there, using unreported payments to influence an election. But it gets worse. After the election, Trump allegedly directed Cohen to falsify business records to disguise the reimbursement as legal fees. That's fraud. That's creating false documents to cover up illegal activity. Cohen didn't just make vague accusations. He provided dates, amounts, conversations, text messages. He described meetings where Trump gave explicit instructions. He explained the payment structure, the falsified invoices, the whole scheme. And while Trump's defenders attacked Cohen's credibility, pointing out his criminal convictions and past lies, the testimony was corroborated by documents, recordings, and other witnesses. Then there's the behavior of Robert Costello during his testimony. Costello was supposed to be a defense witness, someone who would help Trump's case. But his testimony backfired spectacularly. He was combative with prosecutors, dismissive of the judge, and his body language, sighing, eye-rolling, hostile stares, was so bad that the judge cleared the courtroom to reprimand him. Why does this matter? Because Costello's testimony was supposed to undermine Cohen's credibility. Instead, his behavior suggested desperation. It looked like someone under pressure to protect Trump at all costs, even if it meant contempt of court. And the substance of his testimony didn't help Trump either. It actually highlighted the efforts to keep Cohen quiet and loyal, which only reinforced the prosecution's narrative of a coordinated cover-up. Beyond these high-profile witnesses, there's a broader pattern of testimony across multiple cases. In the fraud case in New York, witnesses testified about how Trump and his organization systematically inflated property values to get favorable loans and tax treatment. Former Trump Organization employees described how financial statements were manipulated, how valuations were artificially boosted, how the numbers were whatever Trump wanted them to be. Multiple courts have looked at this evidence and ruled against Trump's attempts to dismiss the cases or reduce the penalties. In August 2025, an appeals court affirmed fraud findings against Trump, stating that the evidence supported conclusions of ongoing and repeated fraud. That's not a maybe. That's a judicial finding based on witness testimony and documentary evidence. Then there are the special counsel reports documenting obstruction. Witnesses testified about Trump ordering staff to withhold documents from investigators, about Trump pressuring officials not to cooperate with Congress, about Trump attempting to hide evidence and intimidate witnesses. This is obstruction of justice, plain and simple. And it's not based on speculation. It's based on testimony from government officials, White House staff, and executive branch employees who were directly involved. What makes all of this testimony so powerful is that it comes from people who were loyal to Trump. Cohen worked for him for years. Costello was connected to his legal team. The Trump Organization employees built their careers there. These aren't partisan opponents or political enemies. These are insiders who know exactly what happened because they were part of it. And that's why Trump's usual defenses, witch hunt, hoax, political persecution, ring hollow. When your own people are testifying against you, when your own lawyers are describing criminal schemes, when your own employees are explaining how fraud worked, it's hard to claim it's all made up. The testimony is too detailed, too consistent, too corroborated by documents and recordings. It paints a picture of systematic lawbreaking, and that picture is becoming impossible to ignore. So where does this leave us? We have multiple witnesses, including former Trump allies and insiders, providing detailed testimony about criminal conduct. We have courts affirming that the evidence supports findings of fraud. We have special counsel reports documenting obstruction. And we have a former president who is now the current president facing the weight of all this evidence. The prospect of Trump escaping legal accountability is looking increasingly unlikely, not because of political pressure or media bias, but because the evidence is overwhelming. When Michael Cohen testifies that Trump gave direct orders to commit crimes, and documents back that up, that's a serious problem. When courts rule that fraud occurred based on witness testimony and financial records, that's a serious problem. When multiple witnesses across multiple cases describe a pattern of lawbreaking, that's a serious problem. But here's the complication. Trump is now back in office. He's the sitting president. And sitting presidents have traditionally been considered difficult or impossible to prosecute. So even with all this damning testimony, even with all this evidence, there's a real question about what happens next. Can state cases continue against a sitting president? Can federal cases be revived after his term ends? Will the Justice Department pursue charges, or will Trump use his power to shut everything down? These are unprecedented questions, and the answers aren't clear. What is clear is that the testimony matters. It creates a historical record. It establishes facts. It makes it impossible for Trump to claim innocence without directly contradicting sworn statements from people who worked for him. And even if he avoids prosecution while in office, this testimony will follow him. It will shape his legacy. It will inform future legal actions. The witnesses have spoken. They've described crimes, cover-ups, and abuses of power. They've provided evidence that prosecutors and judges have found credible and compelling. And that testimony isn't going away, no matter how much Trump tries to dismiss it, discredit it, or bury it under new scandals. This is why witness testimony is so crucial. It transforms allegations into evidence. It turns accusations into facts. It makes accountability possible, even when the person being held accountable has enormous power. Trump may have escaped consequences before. He may escape them again. But the testimony is there. The evidence is documented, and the historical record will show exactly what he did and who knew about it. That matters even if justice is delayed or denied.